Hello bass family and welcome to Everything Bass. You know, today we're at tapping pattern 19. And this one's interesting because it's an actual technique developing pattern. It's not so much a musical pattern in like it's a bass line or a groove or something that you can immediately put over into a song. It is something I used to teach on my first, like whenever a student came to me and said, hey, I'd like to learn how to tap on the bass, this was the first thing I'd show them because it was the first thing I worked on. But then I really gauging the response that students had, I realized it was really hard comparatively to maybe just starting by what I started you guys with, which is a series of patterns. The patterns are a lot more accessible, and I give them in a sequence or in an order that slowly develops up your ability so that you can get to something like this. But this, I think, is so valuable. I wanted to show it to you. And it's funny because in the late 80s, there were a lot of different people teaching this, like not just bass players, guitar players and stuff. So anyway, I think it's good for you to know. I don't want it to be lost in time because I haven't seen anyone recently showing about it. So what's the concept of it? Well, we want to get all 8 fingers working together. So we're going to start with the 8th fret C, and we're going to play a major scale, C major scale. And make sure you play that up and down just to get comfortable with it. Now that's just getting that framed. Leave that hand there, go up to the 15th fret, and that's a C on the A string, and do the same thing. Now you notice I'm using every finger. I'm not like doing one finger. We don't want to do that. That's not the point of this. The point is to get used to using every finger on both hands. So now you've got the this is the playing field. We're not going to move this hand, we're not going to move this hand, we're only going to stay within the notes of those scales, but there's a lot we can do with it. First of all, we can just play in unison the same notes. So we can start with both C's, both D's, both E's, kind of go up the scale. And this tempo is suggested, not just because I don't think you guys can do it faster. By playing this tempo, you actually are really holding down the string for a good long time and developing some muscle and some control, especially on maybe the fingers you haven't tapped a lot with. So the first thing is those unisons. Second, we can take that same idea of just going up and down the scale, but we do play the fretting hand first, then the plucking hand. So we're going like. Going up and down like that. You can also do those in unison. I'm sorry, I went on to the next exercise. So basically, the next one I was going to show you is doing them in thirds. So you're going like C, then play the E, D, F, and just leapfrog through the scale, playing every other note, then go back to the note you skipped and play. And do that with both hands. Had a little hiccup there. Trickier than it seems, but just be patient. A lot of times I demonstrate things quickly and I shouldn't. I do it because I think I want to just get through this and talk to the next thing. I don't want to bore you guys, but I don't want to give you the wrong impression that when I first started doing this, it took me several days to get up to even half that tempo. Tempo is not important. What's important is just getting the coordination down, the accuracy down, trying to make the notes clean. I made a little mistake during that one. Didn't play as cleanly as I liked, so it's something obviously I could review. There's of course a lot of things you can do. Really anything you can do scale-wise, like as it normally practices a scale, like runs a 4, you can do with this exercise. You can do runs a 3, and always you can alternate. I love alternating because I think it just sounds cool, where I can go and so on and so forth, just going between the fretting hand and the plucking hand. So what's the goal? The goal, as I said at the outset of the video, is strengthening each finger, getting your independence and getting your articulation down, your agility down. Try to generate not only good tone in both out of both hands, but the same volume out of both hands. Try to make sure both fretted notes from this hand, or sorry, both tap notes from both hands are roughly the same volume. because you don't want to have like this really loud and this really quiet. It's not going to sound good. All right, so that is the idea, going through and doing it. I'm posting the lesson sheet for this is just a reminder of where to tap each scale, and if, unlike all the previous ones, I have a great staff with both the tab and the standard notation that's called plucking hand, and then the one below it is called fretting hand. So instead of putting it on the same staff, which I've done in the past by using the little triangle notes to delineate which notes are tapped, I'm actually breaking it into 2 lines so that you'll be able to see what the right hand or the plucking hand is doing and what the fretting hand is doing. This is, I would consider it a warm-up, and it's something that's nice that you can actually do in front of the TV. You don't have to necessarily be plugged in. It sounds terrible when you're not plugged in because you're getting both, you're hearing the note, the pitch, if you will, from below the tap and above the tap, and sometimes they don't really harmonize that well. So a fret wrap does help with that when you're practicing, but this is something I say that just if you're just watching a movie, throw the bass on and run through some different patterns, and you should see that you'll get more control, and there's more things will be possible as you do this. So tapping pattern 19. Now I have a unique encore item. It's a kind of a deviation from what I've done before, but I get a lot of questions because I've taught at clinics, slapping, tapping, things like that. People will ask me about like how I set up my bass to tap. And that's a very personal thing, meaning I don't mind sharing it to it. I don't mean that's personal, don't ask that. I'm saying that it's different to every player. Every player is different. But I have found consistently over the years with students I've worked with, people at clinics, and there seems to be some kind of consensus, and I want to share that with you. A couple things is your first inclination if you want to get into tapping is to like set the action really super low, and I get that. But it seems like in the past with this actual bass, this bass, the way it's designed, you can set the action like just microscopically low. It's so low, and with a normal touch, it doesn't buzz or much. So a lot of technicians, they will get excited about that and they'll set it really low. And I'll tell them you got to set it higher, because it seems like when the action's really low and you're a tapping bass player, there's 2 things that I've noticed and that other people seem to concur with. One is the volume of the note is quiet. It's hard when the string is that close to the fingerboard where it doesn't have to travel that far when you tap it, like when it's really close. You don't get a lot of volume, and the note doesn't sound as full. It ends up sounding like just clicky, 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 clicky. You don't hear the fundamental as well. Now, you don't want to go super high because that's just terrible. With there's really high action, the string has traveled too far, and you end up kind of bending it sharp to tap it, and it just doesn't sound good. So, so what's the answer? The answer is to experiment. If you do your own setups, play with it a little bit. The other thing that I strongly recommend is set your bass up for what you do mostly. Like if you mostly are fingerstyle bass player, then set up the bass that sounds good there and adapt your tapping technique for that. It's true that when I do certain sessions and I know that the engineer or the music director really doesn't want any fret noise or anything like that, I'll set my action a little higher than normal, and mostly because I don't do a lot of tapping on sessions unless they're like my own tracks or some kind of cool over-the-top playing tracks that I get asked to be on. But for the most stuff, I'll raise my action. But it's kind of, I don't know, it's weird to set up a bass really low to tap on, not only because I don't think it sounds that good, because most of the time we're playing with people, we're not tapping all the time. We're tapping in a time or a section, or even just for a little bit of a solo or something like that. So I would go with, again, just get a good medium action for your standard playing and then learn to tap with that. Now likewise, I've had a lot of guys who are getting into tapping and they complain, man, I can't be heard when I tap, no one can hear it in the audience. And I'll ask them a couple questions, and invariably they come back with it. They decided to switch just for tapping to super light gauge strings. I get it. It makes sense that a lighter gauge string might be easier to manipulate and tap, but you lose a lot of volume and a lot of bassiness, and so you end up not being heard in the mix, and that's important. So I definitely would say, go for a good medium action. Go for don't just go for this normal size string you normally play, because you've tuned your bass amp and you got your EQ set up for that, and learn to tap on that. don't necessarily switch to super light gauge strings to tap, because they're not going to be heard as well. I don't think they sound as good, but then it just kind of messes up all your other playing, and that's not good. Yeah, there's some other ideas I'll probably plug into the future tapping videos, but that's a couple things to think about. Good medium action, medium string height. Don't go too high, don't go too low. Too low sounds terrible to me, and it's hard to control, I think, as a tapper. And don't go for super light strings unless those are the ones you play normally. Go for whatever string you would play for normal. Don't lighten your string gauge just to, you think, make it easier to tap, because I think it's counterintuitive. I think you end up with a weaker sounding bass line, and it's harder to be heard. All right, well, there you have it. We've given you an exercise here for you to work on, and some ideas about maybe setting up your bass. Now, it's funny, even though I don't like super light gauge strings and I don't like super low action, I do like fret wraps, especially for recording. When you're recording your tapping, I think it really helps. So that's something you may want to look into. All right, guys, that's the video, and I want your feedback. What do you think? Are these fun? Do you want me to keep going? Do you want me to keep creating tapping videos for the future? Could I do something different? What other things would you like to learn from this channel? I'm always excited to just be able to deliver the goods to what you need. The whole reason I started that palm mute series for how to palm mute the bass was because of someone asking me how I did it. So I'd love to respond to what you need most, because this channel has got to be what you guys want. And so I could just sit here and keep throwing videos out, and I'm glad to do that, but I'd love for some direction from you. Okay, so there you have it. Let's get on with it. Please like, share, and subscribe to the video, to the channel. I'm so excited. I'm getting close to 1,000. Not really. I mean, I'm over 900 subscribers at the time of recording. I'd love to break 1,000. It just would be a really great inspiration and encouragement for me. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you're liking the videos, they're somehow helpful for you, I would love it if you could subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you at the next video.